Hey folks, Kenn Rashad with another pop-up edition of HBCU Sports Live. I probably should have told you guys I was going to do it, and I didn't, but decided to do it again anyway. And at some point, I'll give you notice in advance, but I just figured I'd go ahead and do it anyway since I had a little time to kill. Besides, I got a meeting in about another, 35, 40 minutes. But Kenn Rashad, HBCU Sports, pop-up edition. Actually, there are a couple of things that we want to talk about. Actually, the news out today, Howard is an associate member of the Northeast Conference in 6 sports. Members of several conferences, actually. We're talking about sports that have absolutely nothing to do with, with football, but, we're like lacrosse and men's and women's soccer and swimming and so forth. So, but I actually have a special treat. I was able to get my man Kendrick Marshall to join us for the ride for this little pop-up edition. And got my man Kendrick on Skype. And we decided we'd talk a little bit about what exactly we could expect as to whether or not we would have football in the fall. So first of all, contributing editor of HBCU Sports, Kendrick Marshall. Kendrick, thank you, sir, for taking a few minutes to talk to me. Your thoughts real quick, though, before we get into the topic of the day or the topic of the moment. Your thoughts about Howard and this announcement about them becoming associate members in 6 sports with the NEC.
Yeah, I think it's kind of setting the stage for them to eventually move out of the MEAC. As you mentioned before, they're moving to the NEC in a couple of sports, and they are already in the ASUN and the Sun Belt and other sports. So I think in the next couple of years, you're going to see Howard go elsewhere outside the MEAC, which is not good for them because the conference just lost 3 teams this summer to the SWAC, football and basketball wise. So we'll see how it all plays out. Right now, the Olympic sports don't really do much in terms of revenue, but I think this is all setting up for them to eventually move out of the conference in football and basketball.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess, I'll admit, when I first heard the news, I was a little jarred because I was thinking, wait a minute, NEC, what happened, And but it turns out that it wasn't necessarily for football or basketball or anything like that. But with respect to the topic of the moment, what are your thoughts? I mean, this has actually been an ongoing conversation, and no one actually knows what's going to happen. But what exactly are your thoughts with respect to whether or not we're going to have football?
It's looking real dicey right now, man. Like, to be honest with you, just reading the tea leaves, especially at the Division I level, the FBS level, they're still in conversations about whether or not to even start, fall practice coming up in a few weeks. I know there's going to be a meeting in August with the presidents of universities. They're going to decide whether or not to go forward with a fall season or push it back to the spring. And it's all due because of the coronavirus, which has already impacted college sports in numerous ways. The tournament got canceled for basketball. Spring sports have been cut and canceled. And right now, if you're football, you had time throughout the spring and beginning of the summer to formulate a plan of what to do. And you had some schools report in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and you find out players have contracted the virus. I think right now, as we talk on this Monday, about 150 FBS players are tested positive for coronavirus. And so are you willing to continue to have these athletes and coaching staff, more importantly, at risk of contracting this virus just to play a football season? And so I think in the next month or so, we're going to find out whether or not there's going to be a football season, especially in the South, where cases right now in places like Texas, Oklahoma, and Arizona are spiking right now. And we don't know what the death totals are going to be in the next few weeks because death totals lag with these things. So presidents and conference commissioners are going to have a really hard time deciding in the next few weeks whether or not it's going to be a college football season.
So I got to push you. Do you think we're going to have football in the fall?
I don't think so. I know people are looking at the current numbers in terms of coronavirus deaths and saying, well, nobody's really dying of this virus. But at the same time, you see Florida with all the cases they have, Texas with all the cases they have. Wiley College has already decided that they're not going to have a fall sports season. And you look at Langston University, who canceled their fall sports
Yeah.
season too, and they're in Oklahoma. And
Right.
Oklahoma cases has risen over 200% in the last month. And so I think if the cases continue to rise at the level that they're rising, there won't be football because I don't think universities want to be held responsible for campus-wide outbreaks, illnesses, and even deaths if it gets that far, because we already have seen schools have decided they're going to go completely online for classes. I know Harvard announced today that they're going to go online, which could have some reverberations within the Ivy League about what they're going to do for the fall season. So the way it's looking right now, it seems like schools are preparing not to have students on campus. And if they're not going to have students on campus, why would they have student athletes on campus to play sports?
Well, from what I can imagine, I think there have been a few schools that have announced that they're going to have. I want to say, is it one HBC? Was it Hampton that announced that they were going to have fall sport? That they were going to have. Somebody correct me. I think it was Hampton that announced that they were going to have classes online, but there really hadn't been anything said about whether or not they were going to do anything for student athletes. And I find that kind of disturbing, just a little bit. I hope I'm confusing that with somebody else. I've been kind of, I hope that wasn't Hampton that said that. But there was a program out there. Let me just put it like this: there was a program out there that indicated that they weren't going to have fall classes. Classes were going to be online, but there wasn't necessarily any kind of determination made as to whether or not they were going to be, whether the student athletes were going to be in attendance. But I will say this: I really do believe they are going to try to. Somebody out there is going to try to play some football for the fall. I don't believe they're going to be able to finish it, but I believe someone's actually going to try to play football in the fall. And what's going to happen is that they'll start it, and then it'll get to the point to where they'll probably have to stop it. Yeah, I don't know, maybe put it on hold and maybe try to resume it. But whether they have it in the fall, whether they start it, have it to stop it or whatever, I believe that before the 2021 academic season is over with, somebody's going to try to play football. And it might even be in the spring. But I really do believe that they're going to somebody's going to find a way. And obviously, you need more than one team to do it. But I believe someone is going to find a way to try to get a season in. And for all of you who are online right now, by all means, feel free to chime in and give your thoughts. So Kendrick, let me ask you this: with respect to the reports that we've heard about student athletes who've been contracting the coronavirus from workouts, we've heard it with student athletes at the University of Houston. It's even gotten to the point to where some teams, I believe Ohio State, and I believe there was even a report about SMU, have indicated that student athletes are being asked to come in and sign waivers. And I think it even got so bad until there were a couple of congressmen who I think put forth or are trying to have a bill right now to prevent that from happening. But I guess my point is what do you say about the mentality of a program who claim that they have the student athletes first, but then at the same time they require them to sign a waiver if they want to come in for off-season workouts?
It shows that money really rules in college athletics, especially at the highest levels. I mean, if you're talking about a program like Ohio State, I know which was one of the schools that decided to give their players waivers, they stand to lose millions of dollars if they don't have a college football season this year. And that's the reality for a lot of schools. I think I read a report recently about like the city of Tuscaloosa losing several billions of dollars if Alabama doesn't play football this year. And so these schools are going to try everything in their power to have a season. But the key to having a season is testing. And can schools afford testing? And the frequency of those tests, how accurate they are, how quickly they can be turned around is going to play major roles in determining whether or not football can even start and, like you said before, even complete a season. Because right now across the country, testing is at a premium right now. There's shortages all over the country. And so schools are going to have to grapple with this. Are they going to risk taking away tests from people who really need them to give to student athletes and athletic administrators to have a season when the rest of their community or town is in dire need of them?
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that we haven't dealt with at least in our lifetime in terms of how to balance, athletics and what it means to the schools and the coaches with what's going on in the country. Because you look even in pro sports, they're talking about NBA players playing in bubbles to try to complete a season and have a championship round. You're talking about Major League Baseball players deciding not to play this season or thinking about not playing because they don't know what to do because all this is so new and there's so many unknowns. And it's hard to account for all the unknowns right now, and not only in college sports, but just in the world right now.
Yeah, right. Preston Brown is saying Hampton will have online classes this fall. So thank you, Preston, for setting the record on that. And like I said, I knew it was Hampton, but if I understood correctly, there hadn't been any determination as to whether or not the student athletes were going to return. We got comments coming in. Let me see. Cloyd Cam. I love my SU Jaguars, but for the safety of the players and coaches and their family, I can't wait until next season. I can wait until next season for football. Cloyd, I think that's the sentiment of a lot of other people. But, somebody's going to have to show some leadership and step up, I think Broderick Fobbs, the head coach at Grambling, said it best. These are, this is somebody's baby. These are kids. These aren't, professional athletes. And, it's a different case for the NFL and the NBA. Right now they're talking about playing in these bubbles, but those athletes are going to get paid and they're well aware of the risks that they're dealing with. Some are deciding not to do it, even, despite all of the money that they're making, the millions of dollars that they're making for various reasons. Some are just simply saying, I just won't play basketball this year. And I can't be mad at that. I respect them for it. But we're talking about student athletes here who don't get paid, who, obviously, they've got an obligation, to play football with respect to a scholarship. But it really, I'm telling you, and I'm going to say this a lot until we finally get some kind of answer as to what happens. It breaks my heart that we are literally talking about this and debating this and having to, ask this question, are we going to have football in the fall? It just kind of tells you, I'm not excluding myself, but I'm just saying it kind of lets you know what the mindset is of, certain people. At least I can come to the conclusion to say we shouldn't have it. But I get it. Some are going to wait until the last minute. They want to wait it out. But unfortunately, we've got some who just didn't take the time to do the things that they were asked to do. No social distancing. Some people don't want to wear masks. Some people say it's a violation of their, their rights or whatever the case may be. And it's unfortunate at this point.
Yeah. And the thing about that stuff is that I know the governor of Oklahoma recently had a press conference updating the state about its COVID response. And he said, if you want to have football season, if you want to see OU or OSU, you need to wear a mask.
Incredible.
I mean, it's as simple as that. Yeah, I know Alabama came out with a pretty snazzy commercial with Nick Saban in a mask.
Oh, really?
Same thing, yeah.
So we've gotten to this point, and actually, I said this. I'm going to take credit for it, and I'm sure, but I was on Reggie Flood's show last week, and he had Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes as his guest, in studio guest, and we talked about this. And I literally told him that we probably have to dumb down this process. That if anybody, if folks out there have any semblance of wanting to see football, you're going to have to literally say, you know what, if you want to see some football, you're going to have to wear a mask. I personally, I just think the governments just need to, if you shut the states down, and I understand that's easier said than done, and there's economic impact or fallout as a result of that, but you can't have economics if you don't have people healthy enough to support economics. So yeah, you're gonna have to take a hit someplace. But the thing is that as soon as I said that, the next day, I think the governor of South Carolina, McMaster, I think there was a headline that stated that he was literally putting in place that there would not be football, high school or college in the fall if they couldn't get the coronavirus in their state addressed. And unfortunately, we've gotten to this point to where we have to literally threaten college athletics just to get people to act right.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, you mentioned something. There are going to be some trade-offs in whatever decision is made. But like, if let's say, for example, there is no college football season at any level, and I said this on the board when this came up, like there's going to be some like casualties on the other end too. Like there's going to be some furloughs and some layoffs in some athletic departments, as we already seen now. Sports have been cut, so there's coaches out of jobs right now. And then you look at the community, and businesses are going to take a hit. Restaurants, bars, hotels. There are going to be some layoffs and furloughs there. People are going to lose a lot of money. And then you look at like support staff for these leagues, like referees and stadium attendants and food service people. They're not going to get checks either. So, like you said, like it's easier said than done to say let's cancel everything. We're not realizing that there's going to be a great cause and effect to whatever decision is going to be made by these conferences and these school presidents.
We've got contributing editor Kendrick Marshall, HBCU Sports, joining me on this special pop-up edition of HBCU Live. Folks, real quick, and while I got you, if you would take a moment to follow us on the social networks. Also, make sure to subscribe on Facebook. This will be on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook, but this also will be on YouTube later. So also take a moment to subscribe to us on YouTube. We really appreciate it. I do want to get a couple of comments that have come in. Blade SRP, sorry, brother. Don't get paid, don't have proper health care insurance, don't have their safety prioritized by the people in charge who are focused on the holy dollar. Tuscaloosa losing billions in their eyes is more important than the lives being jeopardized. Amen, brother. I couldn't say it any better. Sandra McGee. Appreciate your support, lady, by the way. We shouldn't have a football season this year. I love Alcorn State, but I'd rather protect the students than to lose someone's child. I know that's right. And again, I think that's the one thing that keeps getting lost in all of this. And I'm not saying that people aren't well-intended. I'm not saying that people want folks to contract the virus. I just think that for whatever reason, I don't think we don't see student athletes, when we're out there, we don't want anybody to get hurt. But I just think we don't necessarily view this as someone else's child, especially if they're not ours, and it's just unfortunate that, again, that we're having this conversation and that, we've gotten to this point. So, we're going to wind this down. Like I said, this was just a special edition of HBCU Sports Live. But Kendrick, let me ask you. You mentioned that there was the possibility of. Well, and let me ask you this: can you see football happening? So you're saying you won't have it in the fall? If I'm not correct, all right? If I'm correct, you're saying we won't have it in the fall,
right? But as far as I can tell, the way things are trending, I don't think there'll be a football season in the fall. Okay.
Do you think we'll have footballs at all this year? And when I say this year, during the 2020-21 season, academic year?
I think if there's no football in the fall, I think schools and leagues will at least try to explore it in the spring, because that's kind of the way it's trending right now. I mean, like, it all goes back to testing and how many testing you perform, how often you can perform them, and how accurate they are. And if you try to start a season right now, you have limited testing. And, like, let's say, for example, like Clemson, they have like 30-something players who already tested positive for the virus.
Yeah.
And so let's say that Clemson goes into the season and they have 20 players who tested positive for the virus. Well, they pretty much have to quarantine like a third of their team almost. And so it's going to be really hard to play a football season when you don't have very much manpower. And so if they try to start a season, I don't think it's going to finish by any means at all. Not in the fall, especially when health experts are predicting another wave of coronavirus, which is going to be worse than the first wave in the early spring. I don't see how you can plan for anything right now if that's going to be the case.
Well, I guess, as you know, it's kind of a cliche, but I guess time will tell. And I will say too, the credit of the SWAC. I mean, you know, there are some conferences out there that do have a plan in place. You know, the Ivy League indicated, if I understood, I'm paraphrasing, I think they're going to have something like a 7-game season in the fall, or something like 7 or 8 game season in the fall, in which that's just going to be a schedule comprised of only conference games. They're not playing any other non-conference games. And if for whatever reason they don't think that they can play those games in the fall, then they'll just go ahead and move it to the summer, to the spring. Charles McClellan did indicate that the drop dead date for the SWAC is October 17th, I think is the date. So, that's kind of where we are at this point. But, like I said, only time will tell. Kendrick, sir, I appreciate you taking a few minutes, man, to hop on online with me at the last second. I know you got to go take care of some business, and so do I. Folks, I will promise you, going forward, we will give you advance notice when we have these type of shows, and there will be additional guests, but this is more so just kind of a test wheel. This is new. But by all means, continue to support us, and we'll see you guys next time. Talk to you later. See you later, Kendrick.
See you.